and happy Fraud Watch Friday. Welcome to another live and virtual Q&A session with our cybercrime prevention lead, Dave Morrow, who's joining us from Bellingham.
Hello.
My name's Anna O'Callahan, coming to you from Issaquah, and I'm delighted to be your host during today's session. This is your show. You ask the questions and Dave tackles them. Dave has an extensive professional background in cybersecurity, and he really does enjoy answering your questions related to security and online safety. So please have your questions ready. To ask a question of Dave live on air, please type your question into the chat box or you can raise your hand by hitting the raise your hand button under reactions on Zoom. I'll call on you to ask your question as they come in. And if you prefer that I read your question today for you, please type your whole question into the chat box. Now, let's get started. We were actually sent an example of a suspicious call from one of our listeners. I'm going to read the transcription that's going to come up on the screen and then ask Dave to comment on it. Okay, so here was the voicemail that someone received. What they heard was something about enforcement actions filed on your social security number for fraudulent activities. So when you get this message, kindly call back at the earliest possible on our number before we begin with the legal proceedings. Oh boy, those are words that get your attention, aren't they? Thank you. So Dave, what could you tell us about this kind of call? What should I do when I get something like this?
Ignore it. Just throw it away and forget about it. Because first of all, this is a well-known set of scams involving social security numbers, or misuse, or that you didn't register to vote, or you didn't show up for jury duty or whatever, and they're going to take some sort of enforcement action against you. The social security number business is very much more prevalent because everybody has one, and everybody, the most common one I hear when I'm on the call center answering calls is somebody called and said that my social security number turned up in the wallet of somebody caught for drug dealing in the Texas border. And this was, Deputy so-and-so who said I was in trouble because my social security number was there, blah, blah, blah. And that's all garbage. Just ignore it. It's not legitimate. The Social Security Administration, all of those federal government agencies and all state government and local government agencies, if they're going to come after you with a warrant to arrest you, they're not going to call you. I was in law enforcement for years and years, and I never called once anybody and said, hey, I'm coming to arrest you. If I had a warrant for somebody, I went and got them. So if anybody calls you and tells you we're going to file a warrant against you or whatever, or there's a problem with your social security number and we need to reissue it, any of that stuff, just hang up, because that's not true. Social Security will not call you and tell you that. They'll send you a mail, just through the good old US mail. So, just go back to being very skeptical about anybody that calls you and wants to talk about using your credit card, using your social security card, using your Medicare number, whatever, because that's almost universally a scam of some sort.
Mm-hmm. That's good to know. I guess as we get more and more of these, we get used to hearing those threatening kind of words. Sometimes these messages are very innocuous. UPS. There's something called, a text about you have a package arriving soon, please contact. And it looks real. There's nothing threatening about it. Is it just be skeptical and always go back to the source?
Yeah, I mean, we used to tell people, well, if you're not expecting a package with UPS, then don't respond, right? But that's because
we
of
all
COVID.
Have packages.
We all have packages coming now, so it's really hard to tell people that. But you can still just any kind of text you get like that, don't respond to it, and certainly don't use the link they send you. Go to the UPS website, go to the website for whatever they claim to be, and see if you have a package coming. Worst case scenario is go to the website, call their customer service number. You get off of the website. Don't call anything you get from a text or an email, and ask them if they have a package for you. And being told, especially if your text alert gives you some sort of package number or parcel number or whatever, then ask them if that parcel is really, coming. But you should obviously try to have an idea if you're expecting. I mean, we get packages every day, so it's not at all unusual for the UPS guy or the FedEx guy to come up, leave 2 or 3 on our front porch. But usually if I see something, see the truck pull up, I'll ask my wife, are we expecting something? Same thing, somebody in the house probably knows, yeah, I ordered something, it should be coming in.
Mhm. Okay, great. Thank you very much, Dave. And we have a question from Janine. She says she's read about a breach at T-Mobile. Should I be concerned as a T-Mobile customer? I have my cell phone service with them.
Yeah, the T-Mobile breach is just announced earlier this week. And it's kind of, as most data breaches do, large or small, is unfolding over time. Right now, T-Mobile has said that they have lost, or somebody has gotten access to, names and addresses and date of birth and social security number information for about 40 million people. I just saw this morning that it might have gone up to around 50 now, and that's not unusual. These things take a long time, and it's not unusual to investigate. It's not unusual that in the course of the investigation, the numbers increase or the story changes as you find out more information. That's normal. It's not something that shows that T-Mobile is incompetent or anything like that. That's just the way it works. When you're doing an investigation, you find out a lot more about it in a lot more detail. Right now, T-Mobile is saying that the vast majority of those are for people who had prepaid phone plans or had expressed a desire to have that and given the T-Mobile marketing people a lot of their personal information to check their credit or whatever with. So it's not necessarily all the T-Mobile. There's some other subsidiaries or places, phone companies they've made acquisitions of that are not involved in that. So the best thing to do is T-Mobile will reach out and call you or send you an email or a message about it. But they probably, I'm sure they do, on their website have, go to the T-Mobile website. There should be extensive coverage on the breach. They probably are not ready yet to let you search to see if your number was part of the ones that were compromised, but they will at least give you the idea of how this is unfolding. Because again, the investigation is still ongoing. They're looking, I'm sure, very diligently to figure out if there's anything else this person who took this information or had access to this information had access to. If that, if the scope of the breach gets larger, sometimes it gets smaller. A lot of times it gets larger.
Okay, now let me ask you a follow-up question to that.
Okay.
If I was about to change my plan over to T-Mobile, which I was,
Yeah.
do I take a second thought about that, or is virtually any of these large carriers susceptible to this?
Virtually anybody that has lots amounts of data is, I mean, there's a lot of moving parts in a large company type of IT organization, and virtually any of those are somewhat susceptible. Personally, if it were me, I would be kind of step back and say, maybe I'll wait and see how this plays out a little bit, because again, I was in that world for 20 years in terms of handling breaches for large companies and mopping up those things. And I know that it can happen in some very innocuous ways, but until we know more about this, about how it happened, now they're not going to tell us everything, but they're going to tell us eventually. Somebody's going to leak it, if nothing else, about how this breach occurred. And then I would kind of decide, okay, was that something anybody should have done and these guys just kind of dropped the ball, or was it, they've called it a very sophisticated attack, which is a phrase everybody uses. So you really can't tell of that. But was it something that just came out of the blue that anybody would be susceptible to? Or is it something that they probably should have known about and done that they just overlooked?
So that's something it sounds like we ought to stay tuned for, and maybe we can follow that ourselves. So,
Somebody has a question, I think.
yes, we had Diane who
Lady with
said,
her hand up.
sorry.
My name is
Oh.
June, and it may be not relevant to this, but I keep getting phone call. I subscribe to T-Mobile cell phone, and every other day I get a scam call, and they are all from Bainbridge Island.
Mm-hmm.
And so I block them, but some other number comes on
Yeah.
next in a couple of days. Should I be very concerned about it? I don't answer at all.
No, I mean, you're getting scam calls all the time about everything, and scammers are very, very good about being able to shift their focus in response to various different types of crises or things, because they're trying to push your emotional buttons, right? If they get you on the phone, they're going to tell you they're from T-Mobile and your data was breached and you need to, take some immediate action, blah 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 blah. It's way too early for T-Mobile to be doing that right now. So I wouldn't be worried about it. I would just basically just keep blocking them and move on. If you're getting it on your cell phone, there's phone scam software filters, robocall filters, one called No Robo and another one called Robo Killer, that both of which are free or are virtually free, and will help you filter out those things and not get those calls. But you're doing exactly the right thing about not picking them up and blocking the number. If you're not expecting calls from Bainbridge Island, then certainly don't pick them up, because what they do is something called neighborhood spoofing, which is where they use the area code and local exchange for your number, so that you think it's one of your neighbors. And so if you screen your calls on your caller ID, you're more liable to pick up if you think it's somebody local to you, as opposed to somebody calling from Denver or New York City or Miami. It's somebody local, so it might be somebody that needs to talk to you, like your doctor or your dentist or whatever. So that's where they do right now. So if you're not expecting it, let it go to voicemail or just hang up on them.
I also got two from Middle East.
Yeah, don't talk to those.
I don't answer.
Yeah, I wouldn't. There's no reason to. And if you don't have anybody in the Middle East, if you don't have somebody in your family or a friend who's in the Middle East that could legitimately be calling you, then I wouldn't even answer.
So the scam calls should be expected. Is that what you're telling?
Yeah. The government is trying to get the phone companies and work with them. It's a very complex problem. They're trying very hard to figure out ways to stop the scammers, stop those calls, but it's a long, slow process, because the phone system was never built for that capability, to be able to block out certain types of calls for individual subscribers like you and me.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for that question. And if you have any more questions on that topic, we'll be happy to take them. And we actually have a question from Diane from earlier. I've had two scams. They say they are attempts. I have had two scam attempts saying my business website had their photos. My business website had their photos and they were going to sue me. Is there any way I should or can report this?
Well, yeah, you can report it, Diane. There's if you're sure it was a scam, if you're sure that you don't have your pictures, you can ignore them. I mean, they're basically, just trying to, again, push an emotional button that might scare you into doing what they want you to do. But if you want to complain about them, you can complain to the Federal Trade Commission, ftc.gov. You can complain about that there. You can also complain to the Internet Crime Complaint Center, which is run by the FBI. And that's www.I, the letter I, the letter C, and the number 3.gov. That's IC3.gov. And that's the Internet Crime Complaint Center. And that's basically, you turn this complaint into the FBI. They won't, two guys in bad suits won't show up on your doorstep tomorrow morning flashing their badge. They're not going to go run out and start a case. The FBI won't, but at least it gives them an idea of what's going on, and is it happening in Seattle versus more in Seattle versus more in Portland versus more in Denver. So IC3 and the FTC are good places to complain to, but I would just ignore them. I would just basically blow them off, and because they're just trying to push your buttons.
I did delete them, etc. But because it relates to my business, that's what hurts.
Well, yeah, and if you get further types of things, like they put you on Yelp or put you on some sort of consumer comment website about your company and do that, then you can complain to Yelp, then you complain to who the carrier is for that particular website and say, hey, this is not accurate. You know, if you're sure you don't have anything to do with their pictures, and you know, then that's just they're just trying to push your buttons and get you wound up about it and see if they can get you to do what they want you to do, which is probably give them some money, you know.
Thank you so much for that question. And Justin has just sent one to us. I was contacted by a potential buyer on Facebook about an item I was selling. He wanted my phone number. I gave it to him, and immediately afterwards, I received text messages from Google with a confirmation number. The buyer guy said he needed me to read the number to him to prove I am a real seller. I sent him the number, the confirmation number, and now I can't get into my Google account. Was that a scam? What should I do?
Yeah, that's something that is a usually, I mean, it's a scam to where they can either take over your Google account, which it appears what has happened now. Your account has been taken over by this scammer. And to do that, one of the things they do is will try to change your password. They'll figure out what your account, you know, they'll ask you for your name. They'll ask you maybe for your email address. If it's a Gmail address, it probably has your user ID as you know, the part of the email address. So then they'll try to send Google a change your password request. You know, I forgot my password. And so they'll, you know, they'll send them a confirmation number, or send the legitimate user, the registered user, which is Justin, the confirmation number, and then they'll trick Justin into giving it. There's another scam that I ran into the other day with somebody that had a that it was from Google Voice. The confirmation number was, and what they were doing was trying to get a Google Voice number that wasn't attached to anybody to their phone to use for fraud in the future. So the individual established a Google Voice account and tried to attach it to this person's phone number, and then got the confirmation number to change the passwords on the account and all that stuff, that they got the individual to read back. So there's several different things to do that's all scam. And in fact, the confirmation text that Google sent would probably say, hey, you know, don't share this with anybody. And they say that for a reason, which is not to do it because of things like this. So if they send you any kind of confirmation number like that, under any circumstances, don't share that with anybody, because the person you share it with then is confirmed as you in most cases.
Great advice. Thank you so much, Dave. And here's another question. I've been asked by one of my friends to fill out a community challenge grant. I'm not sure if it's a scam or not. Do you know anything about it?
Well, there's different types of community challenge grants. A lot of things have that title. AARP even has a legitimate one for community challenge, but there's also some frauds going around where you'll get a text message from somebody that's supposed to be, or an email from somebody who is supposed to be one of your friends. And it looks like one of your friends' accounts. They say, hey, I got 25,000 from this community challenge grant. I think you're qualified for it. Click on this link and it'll take you to it. And that's a scam. Usually what happens is somebody is spoofing your friend's email account or their text messaging capability, and it's not your friend at all sending you that message. It's the scammer. The link you click on or the number you call is the scammer's number or the scammer's call center, and they're going to say, yep, you can get this community challenge grant. Sounds like a good idea. They'll take all your social security number and personal information, and then they'll say, oh, by the way, you need to give us a processing fee of $500. Go to Walmart and get a gift card for $500 and read me the numbers on the back. That's the way it pans out a lot. So if you get those text messages from anybody that says, hey, this is great, even they're, one of your relatives, hey, this is a great opportunity, you need to, get in on it, here, go to this link, don't do it, because it's absolutely probably a scam. If you still think it might be, reach out some other way to your friend or to your relative, call them and say, hey, did you send me this email? And I almost guarantee you they'll say, nope, I didn't do that, because it's a scam.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've been asked by one of my friends to fill out a community chat. Did I ask you this one already?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay, sorry about that. With everything happening over in Afghanistan,
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of opportunities to send money to help. How can I tell which charities are legitimate and which ones are not?
Well, unfortunately, as I said earlier, the cyber criminals are extremely adept at quickly modifying their pitches to take advantage of crises in the world. So I'm sure right now we've got not only Afghan refugee relief problems, scams going on, but also the Haitian earthquake relief things. If you get anything soliciting those types of calls or emails, ignore them. Use recognized charities, recognized, the Red Cross or other types of charities that you've dealt with before and that are legitimate. If you have, if you, if somebody particularly appeals to you, there's a couple of websites. One is called Charity Navigator, and there's other websites that'll tell you if they're registered charities, if they're legitimate, and if they're not on there, they're probably not legitimate, or at least there's kind of shaky. So, but I usually, if I want to give money, I go through my church, I go through the Red Cross, I go through some other legitimate way I know to give money or support. I don't just hand money out to folks that contacts me because I know that the potential for that being fraud is extremely high.
Great, thank you. Okay, so follow up to that, if I'm asked to pay a bill via gift card, which you mentioned earlier is often typical, is it a scam?
Yep, without a doubt, no hesitation. If anybody asks you to pay anything online with a gift card, to go to Walmart or Lowe's or wherever, Home Depot, and get a gift card and read them the numbers on the back, it's a scam, period, end of discussion. So if anybody asks you to pay for anything with a gift card, run.
Quickly, got it. Okay, thank you. And another question. I was trying to sell something on Facebook and I was contacted by a potential buyer who wanted my phone number. After I gave her the number, I immediately got it.
Oh, we've done that.
Sorry, that was earlier too. Begging your pardon. I'm not paying enough attention today. I'm so sorry. I would encourage you, are there any other questions from the audience?
I think there's some in the chat. I've been seeing them flash.
Okay. I'm still, okay. Here's another one, a follow-up on T-Mobile. Is there anything I can do right now to protect myself from data breaches like T-Mobile?
Well, there's a limited amount that the average consumer can do because they're going to need certain information, personal information to give you service in T-Mobile, or any business that needs your social security number and needs your credit card number will if you don't want the service, then don't give them the information. Now, one of the things I do that my wife's used to it now, but it used to infuriate her, is I was always pushing back. I would always, if they asked for my phone number or asked for any ID when I was checking out, I would ask them why, and I would push back. You don't really need that, do you? Because a lot of times they don't. Now, your social security number and other types of things, if you're, T-Mobile in this case had social security numbers so they could check the credit of the people that wanted to get prepaid phones or get an account with them, and that's pretty legitimate. But lots of companies still this day and age will gather a lot more information than they need of you. So don't be afraid to push back and say, I'm not going to do that. Like when you sign up for something online, the marketers are very good at making it seem like you have to give them all this sensitive information to get your account, like on Facebook or whatever even. But in reality, you don't have to. And a lot of times you can give them a bare minimum of information and not put a lot of stuff online. If you don't put it online, that's the first step, is to watch out what you put online and be very skeptical about when they say they need this sensitive information on you, why they need it. Because once it's in their hands, there's not a lot you can do except things like freeze your credit or things like that.
Okay, and we have two questions kind of related to that. Yeah. Would it help to freeze my credit or put alerts on my credit cards and debit cards?
Yeah, we tell people to freeze their credit. You got to call or get online to all three of the credit bureaus, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, and you can do a credit freeze online. They'll give you a password. A credit freeze is like putting your credit record in a drawer and locking it, and you have the key. So nobody can get a new credit card or whatever in your name going forward without having the key to unlock your credit. An alert, on the other hand, is just telling the credit bureau, hey, there's been some fraud with this account. So if somebody tries to establish an account, call them and see if this is really them. My experience is that's not as reliable a way as putting a freeze on it. But the credit bureaus, in my estimation, want you to do that as opposed to putting a freeze, because if there's a freeze on your credit record, they can't sell your information. And so they want you to put the alert so they still have access to your information for marketing purposes and stuff. Now, I'm not 100% certain of that. That's just my kind of bias and my supposition, but it makes sense because it screws up I think it screws up their, because they do a lot of effort when you try to say you want to freeze online to sell you and convince you to something called a credit alert or something similar, as opposed to a freeze. So we tell people just go ahead and do the freeze because that's the most secure way.
And a follow-up question to that, can I still use my existing credit cards when I choose to freeze the credit?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. A freeze only works on things that are going forward. So from today, if I put a freeze on my account, anytime in the future, nobody can get credit in my name. Nobody can use my credit record. They can't even inquire against my credit history without that key. It doesn't have anything to do with the credit cards I already have.
Does it cost anything to freeze my credit?
It's not supposed to. Some states allow, $5 processing fee or something. So you can't say categorically it's always free, because I've seen a few states that allow them to charge $10 or $15 to do it. But in the most part, it's not hundreds of dollars. It's $10 or $15 at most. And it's well worth it in the future. If you've ever had somebody steal your credit or establish an account in your name, it's sometimes really hard to get that back it away. I think it is free in Washington. Question come through. Yeah. Oh, Ashley's saying yes, it is. In a lot of states, it's not, or some states, it's not. I won't say a lot. Some states, it's not. They allow them, and if they allow them to have a fee, they're going to have a fee. But used to be, and I don't know if it's still part of the rules, but the rule used to be that if you had fraud against your account, if you were a victim of fraud, then you could get a free freeze. I don't know if that's still the federal law or not, but if you need,
go ahead, sir.
One more question from Linda. If you need to take a loan out, okay, if you need to take a loan, you need to ask the person or company you're getting the loan from, what credit bureau do you use to check credit? Because I've got a freeze on all my accounts. And they'll say, we use Experian. And so you'll say, fine, I've got a freeze because I had some fraud. Let me go unlock the account, and you take the little password that they gave you. If they give you a password they should give you a password when you freeze your account, make sure you don't lose that password, because that's the way you unfreeze your account. But you take it, you call them and say, hey, I need to unlock my credit to get a new credit check done. Here's the passcode. Experian or whoever unlocks it. Your loan company checks your credit, and then you lock it right back again. It's pretty simple.
Okay, that's great. Good, very good to know. Sounds like that might be something more and more of us need to think about, because there's so much happening right now. I'm not seeing any additional questions right now, but we certainly appreciate all of you joining us today. And for more examples of real scams and how to spot them before they spot you, please go to aarp.org/tip-offs. That's aarp.org/tip-offs. And that is actually in the chat box right now if you want to check that out. Lots of great information there. Well, we hope you've gotten your questions answered, and we encourage you to join us again for more of our Fraud Watch Friday broadcasts. Our next live Q&A, like today, is on September 17th at 10:30 a.m., just like today. And in the meantime, On August 8th at 10:30, our lead Fraud Watch volunteers will discuss how to protect yourself in many cases, scams, ID thefts, etc. So we certainly encourage you to join us for that presentation as well. And we hope to see you then. And again, thank you so much for all the questions today. And we'll look forward to seeing you next month on Fraud Watch Friday. Take care now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.